Hi, my name is Josh Philpott, and you are watching a video lesson which is designed to give you a basic understanding of major scales and how to play them on the guitar. To arrive at this, I'll be explaining some foundational music theory concepts. So, if you know nothing about music, then keep watching for the preceding material is appropriate. If you feel you're musical already, but that your theory knowledge is lacking, then this video could help you too, perhaps. For me, this video lesson is meant to display my ability to teach music and the guitar. I've received formal musical instruction through various private instructors and also through the School of Music at Middle Tennessee State University. I've been teaching since 2006, and besides being a skilled teacher and a patient teacher, I've also many years of professional experience to draw from. To find more information on my teaching services, visit my website at joshphilpott.com and click on the Lessons Info tab. Well, I'm very excited about imparting this bit of musical knowledge onto you, but before I do, I'd like to play for you a song by Robert Wells and Mel Torme. And it's also in the spirit of the season, just like my sweater. It's called The Christmas Song. There you go. Merry Christmas. In major scales. We may not all know what to call it, but we all recognize the sound. It's everywhere. Sound and music for one. major scales, and all scales for that matter, are a certain collection of notes that come together to form a flavor of sound. This certain collection of notes comes together to form a major sound. This collection of notes comes together to form a minor sound. Well, this one comes together to form a sound from a distant land. It's a certain collection of notes. That is to say that there are wrong notes and right notes. The question becomes, how do we know which notes to play for which scales we're trying to form? A common answer is to say use your ear. That is to go about the trial and error process when you're playing, guessing at the next note or half guessing at the next note and saying that yes, that note's correct, yes, that's right, no, that's not right, no, yeah, that's right. Well, some of you may be familiar with this process. I will take a second to speak broadly on the subject of playing and learning music by ear. I would never go so far as to say that doing either of those things is a bad thing, because I don't believe that's true. But having done both, can say that learning music without the aid of music theory is like cave exploring with a candle. And learning music with the aid of music theory is like cave exploring with a 1,000-watt work light. Yeah, there's my thoughts on playing by ear. Underlying, back to scales, underlying all the possibilities of all the scales is a comprehensible numbers-based system which we can learn and use to figure out which notes belong. This system is music theory. Music theory gives us a way to know how to create and manipulate various note-based sounds, whether it's chords, or chord progressions, or melodies, or the scales we're talking about. I can't stress the importance of it enough. Music theory is like an underground tunnel system of a great city. It gives us a way to learn new styles and new pieces of music quickly and efficiently. Okay, so first step. Of all the available notes that we could play, there are only a total of 12 which are set up in repeating patterns called octaves, like this. Direct your attention to the notes in between the lines, the dotted lines that is. The notes outside are meant to show that this is a repeating region, and it would continue going, if there was more paper. Listed consecutively are all the available notes in the span of one octave. And what I mean by all the available notes is that if you were to play the A string, which is the second biggest string, you would get the note A. If you would go to the first fret and push it, hit the note, you'd get the next available note up in the chromatic scale, which is the chart you just saw. As we go up one note, we're getting all the available notes: D sharp, E, F, and finally we come to the note after the 12th note. It's the same as the one that we started with, but in a different octave. The chromatic scale is made up of all 12 available notes. That's its definition. As you've probably figured out already, the notes have been assigned letter names from A to G based on their pitches. Most letter names have accidental notes in between them. These are the ones in parentheses, and they're in parentheses because this one note has two different names. The slanted pound sign inside the parentheses is called a sharp sign, and it means to go up to the next available note, or up 1/2 step. The little b next to the letter in the parentheses is a flat sign and means to go down one possible note, or down 1/2 step. The distance between two consecutive notes in the chromatic scale is 1/2 step, and then 2 half steps equal 1 whole step. Whole steps and half steps are a way for us to measure and describe the distance between notes in the chromatic scale, and they're going to be useful when we start constructing major scales, which we'll be doing very shortly. But to be sure that you understand, the distance between A and A sharp is 1/2 step. The distance between A and B is 1 whole step. The distance between B and C is a half step, and the distance between B and C sharp is a whole step. The major scale is comprised of a series of whole steps and half steps, which goes as follows: whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And what I just read aloud is written on the chart with the W's and the H's below major scale. For reference, I've written below that the chromatic scale that we had in the previous chart. If we want to construct an A major scale, we would start with the note A and begin to ascend according to the series of whole steps and half steps. So we would start with A, and we would want to go up a whole step. So that would be the note B. We would skip B flat and go to B. That's a whole step. From B, we would go up 1 whole step to C sharp. From C sharp, we would go up 1/2 step to D, 1 whole step to E, a whole step to F sharp, a whole step to G sharp, and finally a half step to A. And there we have all the correct notes of an A major scale, an answer to a previous question. So there are 12 major scales in total. There is 1 major scale for every note in the chromatic scale. There's an A major scale, B flat major scale, C major scale, E flat major scale, and so on and so forth. So for repetition's sake, let us make a B flat major scale. It goes through the same process, except we start on B flat. So starting with B flat, we'd want to go up a whole step to C. From C, we'd want to go up a whole step to D. From D, we'd want to go up a half step. And we're going to call this E flat. I see we have a choice to call it D sharp or E flat. But when you're constructing a 7-note major scale, you always want to go up to the next letter name. So from E flat, we would go up to F. From F, we'd go up a whole step to G, whole step to A, and a half step to B flat. And there we have a completed B flat scale. Let us skip F and go on to D, because we'll be using D major later when we start playing on the guitar. So we would start with D, we'd go up a whole step to E, a whole step to F sharp, half step to G, whole step to A, and whole step to B. And if you're looking at the chromatic scale, you'll notice you'll have to go over to the left to start over at the A again. From B would go up a whole step to C sharp, and then a half step to D. So here we have 4 of the 12 possibilities already figured out, and I believe that proves that you understand the idea. So let's go over to the guitar. I'd like to now give you an introduction to the guitar, how it's tuned, and how it relates to the chromatic scale we've been discussing. The guitar has 6 strings tuned to different pitches, from low to high, or thickest string to thinnest string. They are tuned as follows: E, A, D, G, B, and E. If we were to start on the lowest pitch of the guitar, we would hit this thickest string, and that would give us the note E. If we were to shorten the vibrating length of the string by fretting the first fret, we would get the note F. Going up to the next fret gives us F sharp, the next note of the chromatic scale. B flat, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F. If we were to start with the A string, the same would hold true. A, B flat, B, C, C sharp, just right on up the chromatic scale the whole way. D, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G. So as you can see, the guitar is like lots of chromatic scales just stacked on top of each other. And if you chart it out, it looks something like this. Here's a chart of the guitar's fretboard, which labels all of the notes of all the first 12 frets on every string. It's basically a bunch of chromatic scales stacked on top of each other. Spanning from left to the right are the strings, which are separated by vertical lines which represent the frets. The frets are labeled above. On the left side of the bold line, the note names are circled. That means that to achieve that note, you would have to play the string open or unfretted entirely. So for the lowest note, if you were to play it open or unfretted, the note that would sound out is an E. If we wanted to know what note the 5th fret of the G string is, we could use this chart to find that out. We could go over to the G string and over to the 5th fret and find out that it's C. This is a very useful chart for beginners. You could also use your knowledge of the guitar's tuning and the chromatic scale to figure out the same information, but nonetheless, this is a very useful chart. Well, now that I've explained, given an idea of how the fretboard is set up chromatically, let's go back to the guitar to learn some major scales. Well, let's learn first how to play major scales up and down one string. Let's begin with A major. First, what we'd want to do is find the note A, which is the 2nd string, the 2nd thickest string, and plug in the whole, half, whole, half formula of the major scale that we used earlier. So we would start with A and go up a whole step, 2nd fret, B, go up a whole step, 2 frets, C sharp, go up a half step to D, 1 fret, whole step to E, whole step to F sharp, whole step to G sharp, and half step finally to A. If we wanted to make a B flat major scale, the first thing we would need to do is find a B flat and plug in the same formula. B flat is the 1st fret on the A string. We would start with B flat, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. B flat A, G, F, E flat D, C, B flat. If we wanted to make an F, I'm making the same scales that we made on the major scale sheet earlier. We start with the 8th fret and go the same formula up. As you can see, it's not that difficult to make major scales on one string. Basically, you find the note, the first note of the major scale you want, and plug in your formula. As you've probably guessed, however, scales are oftentimes played over multiple strings. Crossing strings going this way. That is why I want to show you how to play D major and explain to you how you can play D major across several strings, and that's actually the last thing I'm going to get to. To play a D major scale on a single string, I would say simply find the open D, which is EAD, the third one, the third thickest one, and insert the major scale formula we've been using. But let us now make a scale which takes advantage of the other strings available to us, the higher strings. That way we can move across the fretboard instead of lengthwise down the strings. So we would start with the same process. Open D, insert our major scale formula, whole step to E, whole step to F sharp, half step to G. It's at this point that we take advantage of the fact that the next open string is G, it's the same note. So instead of fretting it at the 5th fret, we're going to use the next open string and get that G instead. So from the beginning we have D, whole step, E, whole step, F sharp, half step to the next open string, G. Now we're going to go from G up a whole step, A, 2nd fret. We're going to go up a whole step to B, and we're going to use the same principle we did already. There is an open B for us to use, E, A, D, G, B, E. So we're going to go from the beginning. It's D, E, F sharp, next string is G, A, next string is B, then up a whole step to C sharp, half step to D. I'd say that's a pretty important concept to be able to move to the next strings and see how scales are continuously formed that way. If I was to draw out a diagram of that scale, it would look something like this. This is pretty typical of the kind of thing you'd expect to see in my lessons. It's set up similar to the fretboard diagram. Strings go left, columns are the frets. It basically just tells you which open strings to play and which frets to push down on the fretboard to give you a completed D major scale. Well, that's it. That's the amount of information I was aiming to impart to you. The picture I've painted is by no means all-encompassing, but frankly that's what lessons are for. Just by watching this video, you've given yourself a solid base to continue to learn about playing music. But for more information on scales and how to construct chords, technique, exercises which help you learn the fretboard and the scales, how to play songs, etc., you're going to have to come see me. I live in the Fremont neighborhood of Seattle, Washington. I teach in my home, not in this room, but downstairs in the music room. There's a picture on the website. There's 4 lessons each month when you're a student with me. There's 60 minutes each, and the monthly fee is $100. That's due in the first lesson. The one-time fee is $30 for a 60-minute lesson. And I'm available throughout the week to my students by email or phone to answer questions about the material that was covered in the week. I've had teachers in the past that would do this for me, and it was an invaluable service, I felt. You can reach me by email at joshphilpottmusic@gmail.com, and again, you can go to my website at joshphilpott.com and click on the Lessons Info tab. So if you or somebody you know are looking for a guitar instructor, I hope you choose me. There are many instructors out there with varying approaches and differing techniques. I don't pass judgment, but I know that if I was somebody else, I would send my son to Josh Philpott for guitar instruction and feel fortunate for having done so. So that's it. That's the end of all of it. Have a good day, and thanks for watching, and I hope to see you.